So, welcome to the latest episode of gallifreypirateradio, episode 178, where we are celebrating 10 years of NuWHO. 10 years!
Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. Of course, on March 26, 2005, Rose aired on the BBC, unless, of course, you downloaded it off the internet illegally a couple weeks before. But yeah, 10 years.
10 years.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Where were they 10 years in Classic Who?
They were in season 10.
Well, I know season 10, but I mean, would that be...
It's the third Doctor.
Third Doctor, okay.
Yeah, so you would have gotten the three Doctors as the celebration for the
that's right, yeah.
So.
And it's kind of sad that they keep saying that we're not going to get anything for the 10-year anniversary of NuWHO.
Well, obviously as a fan, I'm disappointed by that.
Yeah.
But just logistically, I can understand BBC's idea behind that. They just had the 50th anniversary. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to broadcast 50 years of a show and then, a year later start talking, or 2 years later.
But is that really BBC or is that Moffat? Because, BBC would see cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
That's true, yeah. Well, that's, again, I'm not 100% sure. Moffat has said that we're not getting anything. Moffat lies.
Yeah, Moffat is a big liar.
Yeah, I mean, there is a chance that we could get, and this is, again, total conjecture, just thinking about it now, we could get a minisode, like a web something. Yeah. We might even just get a special hello and thank you. Who knows, maybe Christopher Eccleston will Skype now. I think he's pretty much just gone.
Which is a shame.
It is a shame.
It is. Because one thing we haven't done on the show yet is actually...
Introduce ourselves.
Yes, it is right. Wow. Well, I'm just so excited.
You and I have not been, it's been, 2-3 weeks? It's been almost a month since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
And the last time we recorded an episode that wasn't a live panel has been almost 2 months.
Yeah. So yeah, I am your host, David Beauchamp, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Drew Meyer.
Yes, and I can't remember. Did I say this is episode 178?
You did. But once again, it's episode 178.
So what we've never done before is actually reviewed Rose.
Yes, we have no video footage of us reviewing Rose. We attempted once. It didn't work out.
Yeah, because for some strange reason I thought it was a Christmas episode, and we were trying to do other Christmas episodes one year, and I quickly realized it was not a Christmas episode halfway through the recording, and I think I used some expletives.
Yeah, it wasn't a usable part. And you know what, I gotta say that I'm glad we're not using that one, because nothing else. I've had some time to watch Rose several times since that we recorded that one, and my opinion of it has changed quite a bit. So I'd rather talk about it now with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I was actually watching it this morning before we came, and just watching it, sometimes I forget just how good Eccleston was as the Doctor. Mm-hmm. He was pretty amazing, and I mean, I've always said on numerous shows that you needed a name like Eccleston to relaunch the show. You needed a name, and then Tennant really carried it, and then Matt Smith went on with it. But I mean, really watching him this morning, I was just like, wow, what would have happened if we would have actually had him for a second season? I mean, where would those stories actually have taken us? I mean, that's how blown away I was with just that performance in Rose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's certainly an interesting one. With kind of memory being the way it is, when I think back to Eccleston's era, I usually think of it as being a darker, a PTSD Doctor.
Yeah.
And he certainly does portray that in certain aspects. But as I was watching it a couple of days ago, my wife walked in and went, "He's a lot goofier than I thought he'd be." She had never seen it before. I'm like, he is pretty goofy in this one too, but he does an excellent job. And I gotta say, Rose is a really good episode.
It is.
It's a really good episode. And I think with having 5 years of Moffat's run under our belts, and this kind of, I don't want to say feeling of it, but it is aesthetically certainly a lot different than the Russell T Davies era. And it's a little jarring to go back and look at special effects from 2005, which compared to today's standards, is a bit off. And also just not being in high definition.
Well, yeah, because they didn't have the budget to film in high def. I mean, they didn't have a budget really to speak of because, you know, they were taking a gamble. And yeah, they didn't film in high def. I mean,
Until 2009, 4 years in.
yeah, and that was, I think, the last two specials of the Tennant run.
It started with was it Land of the Dead, whatever, the one they go into the desert, with the alien fly people and Countess D'Souza or whatever her name was.
So yeah, no, that's when they started. It's amazing to see the difference from 2005 to what we have now. And in a weird way, I really like the low def version of Doctor Who.
There is something about Russell T Davies, just the color palettes they chose, the editing they chose, the music, the score along with it. It really does feel like a modern revitalization of classic Who.
Does.
Whereas once Moffat takes over and things change slightly, it feels like a different show. It does feel like a different show. You can see where it feels like, you know, maybe to the 1996 movie, and then there's a little bit of a gap, and then this kind of moves into that portrayal.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So it seems like you really like this episode.
Well, if you had asked me 2 years ago about it, I probably would have mocked this episode without mercy. But the things I disliked on the episode, then I still dislike. But I see where they fit into it, as opposed to now where it feels like what you got away with in those episodes you couldn't get away with now.
Yeah.
But there's a certain lightheartedness to it in moments of darkness and very dark moments and in moments of comedy that work very well with this episode in particular. And I know that a lot of people had commented on the director Boak, his work. Actually, you know, to be the first person to direct New Who after, what is it, 8 years, 9 years gap.
Not counting Curse of the Fatal Death and Scream of the Shaka.
Sure.
Yeah.
Then the thing about those are, you know, you have a special and an animated, and I don't know anything. I'm not qualified to discuss the direction of an animated film. But as far as a full episode is concerned, to bring that in, and since Doctor Who is filmed in blocks, Boak directed both Rose and World War III, you know, the farting alien, the living episodes. And so, without kind of having any predecessors to know what you were going to do for a modern revitalization, I think he did an excellent job. And while the tone at times might be questionable, his skill as a director, I think, is fine. It's certainly inadequate. And there's a couple of shots in here today. I was watching it again today, just kind of like every few minutes, just to kind of get the feeling of it. There were a couple of shots I was really impressed with.
Oh yeah.
Especially lighting-wise and so on.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think it's a good, solid episode. I think it's a great introduction episode, especially bringing people back in. You have a classic alien, the Autons, and the
Nesting Consciousness.
Yes. I think the only place they sort of fell short is with Clive. And when he's showing, you know, Rose all the versions of that Doctor, I would have loved to have seen some of the other classic Doctors. But at that point, you know, nobody knew if this was a reboot, if this was a relaunch, a continuation. Even though we were calling him 9 at the time, we really did not know. I mean, he very well could have been number 1 again. And I thought it was a smart move on their part not to. But, you know, looking back now, I think that's the only thing I really would have loved to have seen in that episode is just, you know, acknowledgement that there were others before him.
Well, there is an acknowledgement because Clive specifically says it feels like it's something that's passed down from father. The name is passed down from father to son because he's changed faces and changed outfits. I do also like that it almost feels like a Moffat-esque touch, that even though this is an adventure in which Eccleston's Doctor is newly regenerated, you know, hence his little kind of looking in the mirror, we get these images of him at Pompeii, and we get these images of here right before the Titanic.
Yeah.
And, you know.
JFK.
Yeah, none of that stuff has technically happened in our timeline, but it's happened in the Doctor's timeline.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like something that's going to happen in the future, which I think is really quite fabulous.
Yeah.
It's a very well-written episode.
Yeah, it
Russell T
is.
Davies did an excellent job with it. There's some really good touches. There's humor is really top-notch. And kind of going back, I think the acting is actually really, really decent as well.
I mean, that's what hit me this morning. I don't know what it was. I mean, I think all the way around, I think everybody involved, whether they knew what Doctor Who was or not, you know, if they knew about it or not. I mean, of course they knew about it, whether they're fans or not. I think they really brought their A game all the way through, all the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just, like I said, after just, I don't know, watching it today, I'm just kind of like, what would have been like if we didn't get Tennant? You know, what if Eccleston would have continued? I mean, I really, really want the answer to that question now. I would love to have seen what maybe a second season of Eccleston would have been like.
Well, I like the what if aspect of that, but there is something nice about going into that first series and knowing that Eccleston's only going to have one series, and so they have a very contained season. One of the things that I think that series one is, as far as NuWHO is concerned, is one of the very best. In of the last 8 series or so, I think it might be my second favorite series. There's something really nice and self-contained about it that I think is good. I think it's a good relaunching point. Again, I think it would be better had there been no Daleks, but that's just my bias towards Daleks.
Yeah.
But for a relaunch,
But I mean, that was a really good episode.
Dalek is a great episode.
And of course, you know, they were trying to, you know, bring something back. But I mean, but the great thing is I know when I was watching it originally, I had no idea that we were not going to have Eccleston by the end.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, oh, you know, I was really taken aback when that happened, because this is before Who hit it big and it was all over the internet, you know. Mm-hmm. Where rumors
I was barely even on the internet at the time I watched it for the first time.
And I think a lot of people weren't. I mean, honestly, I think that, you know, about that time was when we were really starting to get the advent of the internet and spoilers and rumors and stuff like that. So I think, you know, it really benefited for being able to fly under that radar. Like nowadays, if let's say, you know, they said, we're going to relaunch Doctor Who, you know, next year, you know, we would know everything before it came out. Yeah. So that's, I think it came back at the perfect time where we were able to get that surprise.
Yeah.
Especially over here in the States. I know over in England they had already known that they were going to be losing Eccleston, but I mean, here we didn't.
They made the announcement shortly after the Rose aired. I think they basically Rose aired. It went. I think it has one of the highest debuts of any of the Doctor Who series. You know, people were definitely congratulating themselves on a job well done when someone went, well, of course he's leaving at the end of the series, and I didn't know. I wasn't paying attention at the time. It came as a complete surprise to me. I thought it was interesting. You were going back and saying we didn't know if it was a reboot or a restart or a continuation, but we don't have a regeneration. So regeneration's never mentioned until the moment before Eccleston starts. So we really do have kind of a mirror of the Unearthly Child, where the Doctor is a mystery. So if you're walking in, the scene where Rose encounters the TARDIS and walks into the TARDIS, and we don't see what she sees, and she goes around and of course and comes back in with that amazing tracking shot that comes right in there, and we get to see the new TARDIS set for the first time.
By Brian Hitch of Ultimates fame.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, he helped design the new TARDIS interior.
Did he?
Yes.
The Coral desktop, I did not know that. That's really cool. Well, I think the nice thing about that is, as someone who has never seen the show before, walking into that gives us a real mystery. As someone who is familiar with it, you kind of get that, I know what's coming.
And honestly, the only, one of the things that they had planned that never happened, and it's kind of good it didn't, is that because the comic had been the torchbearer the entire time, Davies really wanted the regeneration to occur in the comic.
I think that would have been really neat.
But the thing is there was no way to schedule the comic to come out right before the episode
Right.
because they didn't want to spoil the new Doctor, and so we almost had to buy this much the regeneration scene actually in the comic, which of course thankfully we didn't because we wouldn't have war and things like that. But yeah, no, they really tried to figure a way of giving the comic that little piece of continuity, that sort of nod, thank you for carrying the torch all these years, but they just could not logistically make it happen.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else. Something else one, I thought this was really interesting. Rose comes in to the TARDIS and starts talking, and one of the first things the Doctor says to her after she enters the TARDIS is shut up. And I was like, there's actually a lot of that going around.
Well, I mean, honestly, he uses one of the second Doctor's catchphrases.
Which one?
Run.
Oh.
Because that was supposedly going to be his catchphrase.
Run.
Was basically run, when I tell you to run, run, run. That was good. They were going to try to make that a second Doctor catchphrase.
Well, we get Fantastic instead.
Yes, we get Fantastic. Yeah.
God, that guy's got some big ears.
He has, yeah.
It's very impressive.
Huge ears.
One of the other things I was watching is, it's just kind of interesting to see Rose's life at home.
Yeah.
And so just Jackie Tyler, Quadri's performance does a great job. It's really interesting to see a character who, you look at the classic characters, and a lot of the companions were either already established professionals or orphans, in the case of the younger ones.
Yeah.
And Rose kind of skirts that age-wise. She's just slightly older. I think she's only supposed to be like 18 or 19 years old.
Yeah.
So she's still very young, but to have a family life, an anchor that she will occasionally go back to. So that's kind of nice that we establish, her mother. We don't learn about the father yet.
No.
We get a cool, her relationship with Mickey, and I sometimes forget how Mickey is portrayed in Rose. So I watch it again. It's like just a poor little sad.
I didn't realize he had an earring. This is the first time I noticed he had an earring.
He has an earring?
He has an earring.
I don't think I noticed that.
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever noticed he had a nice glittering earring in his ear.
Does the Auton duplicate have an earring as well?
I don't remember that, but I was like, all of a sudden I'm looking at Mickey, I'm like, he has an earring.
Huh.
It's something I've never noticed in 10 years of New Who.
I don't know if he keeps it.
I don't know. I would have to go back and watch everything, but yeah, he has an earring.
I was just saying that I think it's neat that Noel Clarke's performance as Mickey, I don't know what they knew he was going to have a story arc throughout the various series of the show, but to have him kind of be this towering, anyway, I don't want to say sycophantic, but it's definitely, he's not a well thought of character. So when she finally runs, leaves him, thanks for what exactly, and then just is in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
And I think Rose ran a little short, so they included the Next Time trailer in there, which kind of hit it off as cause I think with the Next Time trailer, it's under 43 minutes as an episode. But
but sometimes that's not a bad thing.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think what's interesting is if it's running short and they want to fill a slot, you put in that Next Time trailer, and suddenly all of them, I think almost without fail, have a Next Time trailer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something else. You were mentioning Clive a little earlier.
Yeah.
And while we don't really get Clive's name, I wanted to remember what Clive was so I could give him a full name. I think in the notes it says Finch, but they don't actually ever say it in there. It's really interesting that they kill the Doctor Who fan right off the bat.
Well, is he really a fan?
Well, he spends a lot of time on the internet arguing about Doctor Who minutia. I would say that he's, and he wouldn't know an aggressive alien if it came up and shot him in the face. And keep in mind, his wife and child saw him, but we don't actually know what happened to him. There's a very high body count in this episode, incredibly high, more so than in Sure, a planet explodes, but we actually get to see people getting mowed down in a mall. I was just thinking how nice it was because in The Spearhead from Space, we don't actually see the Autons break through the glass. It's kind of one of these assumed things. You get shattering the glass and you see them move because they didn't have the budget for the plate of glass. I think they break through like 5 or 6 plates in this one. Really good body
that's great stuff.
I'd be very curious, something I've never researched, to see if the mannequins that they use in this episode are the same kind of mannequins they use in actual shop windows. Last time I was in the UK, it was 96, so it's 10 years prior to that. So, I feel like those mannequins, the autons that we see walking around, are very stylized. They have a certain specific look, and I don't know if those were designed just for the show or if they actually...
Well, I mean, they kind of also did look like the old autons, a little bit, style.
Well, the autons, one of the things that make the autons so creepy is the complete blank expression and just the round heads and the clothes on them. Yeah, the autons really are great.
Yeah.
I didn't know this until I did some research in the last day or so, that Nick Briggs, from Big Finish, is the voice of the Nesting Consciousness.
Really?
So he's already just starting off, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is he was always a fan of...
Oh, of course.
Of Doctor Who. I mean, even the Big Finish audios had started up, 6 months and 9 months before, because they just did their 10th anniversary, Big Finish, I think?
No, they've been doing it longer than, as Big Finish. No, I think they've been doing longer than that because...
I think they had some sort of anniversary. I can't remember if it was 10 or 15 years, but it focused on the Doctor Who stuff. So I mean, they've been carrying the torch for who knows how long. I mean, at least 5 years, possibly.
Even before they were Big Finish, they were BBV. So when you have...
you have the Arizona Solution.
Arizona Solution, which he's a part of.
Yeah.
And then they go on to those... have you ever listened to the audio dramas? Did we pick up a couple of those pre-Big Finish audio dramas not long ago?
I think you did, yeah.
Yet to listen to them. I may have to. I have a road trip coming up. I may listen to a couple of those beforehand. But that isn't something totally different.
Yeah.
So Rose. 10 years. It's pretty brilliant.
Thank you. Honestly, you have two people to thank. Moffat, strangely enough, because of Curse of the Fatal Death, and Davies for relaunching it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure there's a lot more people behind the scenes for that as well. I know that Julie Gardner wanted to get it going, but it's impressive. There's not a lot of shows. We talked about this not too long ago about shows that launched in 2005 that are still around, and there's some, but not many.
No.
To be celebrating 10 years in general, even in American television, is impressive. But in British television, where you usually have one creator scripting 6 episodes a season, to have 12 to 13 episodes a series is impressive to keep going, and it's more popular than ever, at least numbers wise. So it's certainly huge. One of BBC's 3 flagship shows.
Yeah. So, and they're about to lose one of them right now.
Which one are they losing?
Downton. Next year's the last season.
Oh, well, I wasn't going to consider that a flagship show.
I do right now.
Top Gear and
Top Gear, definitely.
What's the, not Strictly Come Dancing, but the X Factor. So X Factor, or is that ITV? Well, see, my knowledge of BBC television. I watched an episode of Top Gear recently, just to see what everyone was talking about.
I've never watched it.
Really enjoyable.
I know there's 1 or 2 Doctor Who episodes.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, where they have Tennant and Smith, I think.
Oh, that's cool.
Here.
Actually, speaking of Tennant, kind of funny, the launch of Rose, or actually before Rose was launched, they had to kind of get to know Doctor Who to remind people, and of course, who narrated that was David Tennant, that little short. So. Yeah,
and before he was even on the news show, he had lent his voice to a couple of Big Finish episodes.
And Scream of the Shulka.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. We're celebrating 10 years with Doctor Who. Radio Times also did so.
Yes,
with a online fan poll. So it's important that the Radio Times themselves did not decide this. They put it to the fans. Do you know any of the specifics as far as how long it was on?
I have no idea. I just saw the list, and part of it I had to shake my head at just because of my own personal preferences, and I actually did make mention when I posted it that we had not too long ago rated the episodes.
I really should have gone back and looked at where in the scale we had done these, because some of them are quite low. But Radio Times produces the top 10 lists, starting at number 10, according to the online poll. Number 10 was The End of Time. I understand why this could be popular. I do.
Honestly, it's the last 15 minutes of the episode.
Yeah, and it's also... It's like a big summer blockbuster kind of popcorn film. There's a lot going on in it.
But it's terrible.
It's terrible.
Everything about that episode is terrible, except for the last 15, 20 minutes.
I think the problem with that episode is, I think they're going, I think there's a lot going on and not a lot of it actually meshes together. So there's a lot of good parts, but then which are kind of wiped out by really idiotic choices.
Yeah.
I get Davies wanting to end big. The problem is every series has ended big and then they tried to overdo it, and how do you, anyway.
It's terrible. Number 9, Silence in the Library.
Yeah, so the Silence in the Library two-parter. So hey, we number 10, David Tennant episode.
Yeah.
Number 9, David Tennant episode written by Stephen Moffat. So we got a Russell Davies and a Stephen Moffat episode.
And The First River.
And The First Appearance of River.
Yeah.
This is in my top 5.
Yeah, I think it was.
Well, it was number 2 for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I love this episode and I love everything about this episode, mainly because of River Song, but there's a lot to go along with that one.
Yeah.
I'm fine with its placement. If this list had not included this one, I would have just been like, gone.
There's stuff on there that surprises me that didn't make the list.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, we'll talk about what's not on there until number 8, of course, is Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways, the end of series 1.
Yeah, and honestly, really good. I think you could take the 2 episodes and mash them together to make just one solid single episode. I don't think it needed to be a 2-parter, but
I think if you had tacked 15 minutes on to Parting of the Ways and removed the game shows.
Exactly.
I think, and that's just personal preference.
Yeah.
I mean, it's how they didn't know necessarily, they knew they were going to get another season, but when scripting it, there's not 100% sure.
Yeah.
So again, first series, I think it wrapped it up very nicely.
Yeah.
I think the transformation from Eccleston to Tennant was very cool.
Wow, I mean, that was just something we've never seen before.
Oh, yeah, well, that particular type of regeneration.
Exactly,
absolutely. Yeah, and again, even though I don't like the Daleks, if you're going to end it, Daleks make a really good reason to do it.
Well, I mean, they did cause, it was Cybermen that caused the first regeneration.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't think the Daleks are responsible for any regenerations in classic Doctor Who.
Nope. Well, actually, not in classic. No. And actually, I was happy to see this one on the list.
Number 7?
Yeah, Girl in the Fireplace. Absolutely adore that episode.
I do too. The interesting thing about Girl in the Fireplace is I have been on a number of panels where I've heard a lot of people really talking down to the episode. And their reasons for doing so, I completely understand. And so I try to look at it from an objective standpoint, and I kind of look at their arguments, but I still can't stop my enjoyment of that episode. What I have done is I've stopped introducing people to Doctor Who via that episode.
Oh yeah.
It's got time, it's got future, it's got a mystery, it's got a little horror aspect of it. It's a Stephen Moffat script. Again, we're still, so we have our first Eccleston with number 8.
Yeah.
We have a third David Tennant that's very popular.
Yeah.
But it's a good episode.
I love it.
Yeah. Number 6, Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. So of course that's the 2-parter that ends series 2. I'm going to tell you this. I know that classic fans always wanted to see a Cyberman Dalek fight. But I think the reason that this scores so highly is the last few minutes with Rose.
Yeah, exactly.
I think just, and it's such a good ending. I certainly was.
It's the best part of that 2-parter, in my opinion.
Yes, probably. It's been a while since I've watched it. It's been about 6 months since I've seen it, and it's definitely the most memorable part of it.
Yeah.
I just wish that had been the end of Rose. I really do, and I know that people, and we'll discuss more of that later. But it's very well written. It's very well acted. It's very well shot. That last section's really
it's the best part of that 2-parter. Oh, and then number 5. Not one of my particular favorites, but it rates very, very high on a lot of people's lists. It's The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances.
Right, which is, of course, another Stephen Moffat episode. Our first Captain Jack episode. So Stephen Moffat's first foray into the regular series of Doctor Who. I adore this episode. I know you don't. It's never resonated.
It's never resonated whatsoever. I can appreciate a lot about it, but it just isn't one of those I could just I'm gonna go watch that episode, because a lot of people can just go and watch it. They love it, or it's the first one that made them feel scared.
Absolutely, 100%. That's what I was going to say. I can't just put that one on because there's a certain creep factor to that. It really has a horror factor, and it does something interesting. It's a horror episode that makes you worried, but also a good portion of the actors are children.
Yeah.
And they all those children do a great job in it too, which is makes it interesting. Okay, number 4, the 50th anniversary of the Day of the Doctor.
Yes.
I'm actually a little surprised that this is not higher up on the list, especially after Doctor Who Magazine's poll rated this is the number 1 episode of Doctor Who of all time.
Yeah.
Which I'd be very curious in 10 years' time to see where Day of the Doctor sits. But
I think it's always going to be high, but I don't think it's going to be number 1.
Probably not. I think it's so close to 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
We have talked about this episode on numerous occasions. We've done little live showings of it. This is, just as you were saying before, people could just put something in and just put it. Now that I own a copy of it on DVD and Blu-ray, but I'm a Blu-ray player, I can put this episode on and just let it run.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore this one. And as far as the rankings are concerned for 10 best episodes in the last 10 years, this is probably really close to where I would put it on my list.
Yeah.
This is number 4. I think it's a near flawless. It's really hard for me to call it an episode because it's a movie.
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half long movie.
Yeah. And number 3, Stolen Earth and Journey's End. I don't know how I feel about that being there. I know why it's there, but it's the goodbye to Tennant Part 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the fact that we get all the companions back for this. We get a tie into Torchwood.
Sarah Jane Adventures.
Sarah Jane. It's a little of everything. Even poor Martha gets to come back.
Are we talking Martha or Dawn? No. My opinion of Martha recently has just skyrocketed. I've been kind of going back and watching Martha episodes. This is, and I think you and I have both said this on numerous occasions, I wish this had been the end of Tenet. I wish I wish we could have, even if it meant losing Waters of Mars, and I know that's controversial, I would have lost, don't get me wrong. Any Doctor Who is still good to have.
Yeah.
I just am not a fan of the end of time. The next Doctor's good, but I could have done without the specials. I think tweaking this 2-parter to be the end of Tenet, to maybe have him regenerate. Now you couldn't have him regenerate in front of all those people because they become so involved in his life.
Yeah.
But you could have done that last 15-minute scene with Tenet in this episode.
Oh yeah.
Saying goodbye to them.
Yeah.
Number 2, Vincent the Doctor.
Yeah, one of my absolute favorite episodes, Vincent the Doctor. You want to talk about an episode I could just watch over and over and over again? It's that episode. I adore every aspect of that episode. The chicken kind of wears on me, but for me it's part of Series 5, which I think is probably to me the best series that we have so far in New Who.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I think Series 5 is.
And honestly, and what makes this episode even that much better for me right now is the chance that I got to meet the actor that played Vincent, and he is just the most amazing individual you can even hope to imagine to meet. It just makes the episode all that much better. And the fact that we have Bill Nye in it.
Yeah.
I
think it's nice that it's it's not a true historical because we have an alien space chicken.
Right.
But it does set a precedent for celebrity historicals.
Yeah.
And they, again, having Tony Curran's acting is superb. The subject matter is really good.
Yeah.
I am amazed when I read negative reviews of this episode by people. I think it's a very moving episode. I think it's a really well put together one.
I really felt that they all put their heart into it, and I feel like that about the entire season. But I think just that scene where he's just like, maybe, just maybe, we made a small difference.
Yeah.
And when you see that for Amy, it's
just to have
and the speeches, the monologue, I mean, everything about this episode is, and the fact that at the end of the episode they also did have the, if you know somebody suffering from depression.
Which didn't air in the United States, that it was only in the UK. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
If, for instance, you got your hands on a copy of the UK version of the
Yeah.
you get that nice.
But I mean, yeah, but it's great that, you know, they recognize that he suffered from something, and this was an episode that some people could relate to, and it might have been the doorway for people to seek help that needed it.
It's one of the things that Doctor Who hasn't done as much in the new series is social commentary.
Yeah.
You know, social commentary. It feels like the social commentary, and especially in Pertwee's era, was really heavy.
Oh, most definitely.
But, you know, again, so it brings us to number one.
Number one, I can sort of argue this, can't argue it, but it's a phenomenal episode. I think it's Moffat probably at his best.
Mm-hmm.
Blink. And strangely enough, a Dr. Light episode.
Yeah, the best Doctor Who episode, the Doctor's only in it for about 3 minutes. I think Blink is one of the best written episodes of television of all time. I think it's almost flawless. It's you know, one of the things that Stephen Moffat likes is that kind of circular paradox, which is perfect for Doctor Who. The use of time travel in this one, in particular, is incredibly well done.
But I think your point, because we've talked about this up numerous times,
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
the fact that we, even without knowing it, are part of the episode.
And we participate with the episode.
Yeah.
It really makes it. And then you get. I think it's unfortunate you had this great performance by Carey Mulligan, who would love to come back to Doctor Who, but now that you win, once you win an Academy Award, chances are you're probably not.
What's she won the Academy Award for?
You know, I don't remember. Did she win it or was she nominated for it? But she got a lot of attention pretty early on, and so that's probably not going to happen.
So I have to ask, what do you wish was on this list that isn't there? If you had one episode to pick that isn't there, what would you want to see on there?
Well, I think you could probably remove End of Time, Army of Ghosts, Doomsday, and probably replace it with almost just about anything. What I was really impressed with is the lack of a Capaldi episode.
Well, the question is when did they do this
Couple. It was after season.
was it after season?
I think, and I didn't read the article as much,
I didn't either.
but it's from one of the most recent Radio
Okay.
Time magazines. So I'm going to assume that they made this.
Yeah.
You know, so it's interesting that Capaldi has a lot of viewer ratings, but none of the single one of the episodes, and I'm okay with that because there's not a lot out there that I think Christmas Carol should have been on here. I'm a big Christmas Carol fan. I'm surprised there's not more Matt Smith.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that Pandorica Big Bang is not on there.
Yeah. Well, for me, the one that really surprised me that was not on this list, because I think it's a near perfect episode of Doctor Who, and it's the one that I show people to get them into New Who, and I tell people and they said, "Well, I couldn't get into it." 11th Hour.
Yeah.
To me, I was just shocked that we have no 11th Hour on this list.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was the biggest shock about the list.
No, I think I agree with you 100%. I think the 11th Hour and Christmas Carol probably both could have fit in here. I certainly think 11th Hour probably could have come in instead of End of Time, and I would have been very happy with this list. But yeah, 11th Hour and Christmas Carol. Again, both of those in Series 5.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be said about this list. You know, we've talked about what we like on previous episodes.
On most of the episodes.
On most of the episodes, we usually talk about what we like. Well, we don't. We talk about things we don't like. It's pretty foul.
Yeah.
So, are you going to, even though we reviewed it for this episode on at 5:15 on or whatever it is on March 26th, are you going to watch those again?
If I have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I would technically be at work when it started.
Sure.
Or I will be this time around. But you know, I'll probably be watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's just, I mean, I can honestly say I won't say I was the first person in the States to see it, but I was one of the first to see it, and you know, it just, you know, I love that I got a chance to say this. Not only did we get Doctor Who back after this long, insane period of no Doctor Who, especially from the American point of view.
Right.
We got it back amazingly well. We got it back great. You know, they can only hope that they do this with Star Trek at some point. Because a lot of people keep hoping that we're going to get a Star Trek on TV again and things like that, but, you know, I don't know if there's a channel or a network that would be willing to take the risk that it would take to do something like that, like a relaunch of Doctor Who.
I'd certainly love to see it.
But I guess, anything else you want to say about the 10 years of New Who, the list, Rose?
No, I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to talk about for both of them.
Awesome. So this is GPR signing off. Thank you everybody involved with giving us Doctor Who back again. Peace.